I hope you all enjoyed the unboxing video I did of the Bachmann 9 a few weeks ago. I got another informational video for you. I noticed something a little bit strange, and anybody that watched when I was running it at the end of the video may have noticed something a little odd as well. I'll put up a little video here that I I took after I noticed it. Now, one thing I noticed has to do with the lights. I have this set to run forward right now. As you can see, the ditch lights and the headlights on there. If you come down to this end, that light's off, but if we throttle up more, now it comes on. I'm not quite sure why. So, as you can see, there's some sort of funny issue going on with the front and rear headlights coming on at the same time. I had kind of a little bit of an idea that what might be causing the issues, but after spending some time talking to Stan Ames, it turns out the issue is the system I was running it on is the old Crest Revolution. It's still made now by Precision RC, which is basically the same person that's always made it. Your standard Revolution stuff puts out pulse width modulation, PWM. If you're looking at Aristo-Craft or Crest type stuff, they're going to call it PWC for pulse width control, which I believe is just a term that they had coined. It's pulse width modulation. One thing I want to point out before we go any further is this issue with the pulse width modulation isn't something new or unique to the Bachmann 9. It's something that has caused issues for quite a few years. The first time I ran across it was with USA Trains locomotives. Now, there's going to be people that are going to say, I'm using an Aristo transformer or another one that puts out pulse width modulation, and I have no issues with my USA Train stuff. And that is very possible. It has to do with the electronics, what version of the electronics were in the USA engine, and also what type of voltage regulator they used in it. There was a certain style of voltage regulator that did not handle those high spikes of voltage. It just picked it up as the voltage being at full capacity, and it would dump all the voltage to the heat sink to try and bring it down, which would result in none of the lights coming on. And my explanation of that may not be exact. There's going to be somebody that knows better about it than me, but I read a little bit in several different places at the time when I encountered it, and that's when I found out about the whole pulse width modulation versus linear power. But there were issues with that. Anybody that had any of the Lino large scale stuff that came out in, I don't know, was that the 90s, 80s, late 80s? Any of the stuff that had the Lino rail sounds in their large scale stuff, the electronics for those sound systems did not like pulse width modulation. You could actually, to my understanding, you could burn up the sounds in them because it did not like that voltage. Another example, and again, this is from a little bit of reading. I didn't own any of the LGB stuff that possibly had these issues, but some of the LGB locomotives and the electronics in them, again, from what I read, had issues with that you could damage the electronics in them. So what I'm just trying to say in a roundabout way is it's not, there's nothing messed up with your Dash 9. It's an issue with the pulse width modulation. And to the best of my knowledge, they started using it early on, at least Aristo did, because one of the advantages of the pulse width modulation, and I'm going to do a very terrible example here, but Think of standard DC power as just being a nice smooth straight line. With pulse width modulation, you have that nice smooth straight line, but you also have this wave factor kind of going through there. And what you do is you get all these like real quick spikes in power. Now, for an electric motor, it doesn't really affect it. I think actually it kind of helps them run a little bit better. But the side effect of it, and I think the main reason that Aristo implemented it themselves, was those high bursts with the older incandescent lighting that was in all the stuff. It allowed those lights to come on almost full brightness from a very low voltage. If you ever ran Aristo stuff with a standard transformer to put out linear power, which like I said is just that nice smooth line, you'd notice that the lights would come on kind of dim, and as you turn the voltage up, they'd start getting brighter. So that aside, it seems like what the issue is that pulse width modulation is causing a little bit of issues with the circuitry that's in the Dash 9 that controls the directional lighting. Talking to Stan about it, it seems that Bachmann, to try and make the operation a little bit better, the Dash 9 for people that are running standard track power, they have it set up so that the lights come on at a very low voltage, so you don't get that, kind of a weird dim effect, or the light's not coming on right away. And it seems that wave factor of those spikes of full voltage, and remember these are happening very rapidly, that's making some sort of goofiness, for lack of a technical term, with how the directional lighting is controlled. Now, one thing I didn't notice right away when I noticed this running it on the layout is when you got closer to full voltage, like turning the throttle all the way up, the headlight that shouldn't be on actually goes off. Because as you get closer to that full voltage, those waves start to kind of smooth out. Again, apologize for my terrible explanation there, but they start to smooth out, and then it doesn't have that effect anymore. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a couple different transformers here and just kind of take a look at what has pulse width modulation, what doesn't, and what you can do if you do have a transformer you're using that you really like and it's causing you these issues, what you can do to keep using that transformer. So with that said, let's take a look at what we got going here. All right, so we got a couple different things sitting in front of us here. We'll go on down the line here and take a look at the different items I got. So this here is a standard transformer. This is an old Bachmann Spectrum transformer that I think I got sometime in the 90s. This transformer just puts out straight linear power, no pulse width modulation / pulse width control on it. Okay, so we'll skip this guy for a second. We'll come here. This is just an old standard Aristo transformer, and you will notice across the top there it says pulse width control system. It's just pulse width modulation. Moving down further, we've got two different revolution base stations here. For people that aren't familiar, all the base station is it's something that can go between your standard transformer running at full voltage or hooked to the fixed DC output, not the AC, but it can go between your transformer and your track. And then your revolution remote will control everything through there. It's not controlling any locomotives independently or anything. It's basically just remotely controlling the voltage of the track, like if you were using a transformer. But at any rate, we got two different ones here. This is a old one that had, before they had sound in them, and it was made when they were done under Crest. This is one of the ones that's been made since Aristo went out of business and Crest turned into being Precision RC, I guess you could say. So we're going to take a look at both of these and see if they react any differently, because these both use pulse width modulation. Now, what I don't have in front of me to show you is they do actually make versions of these that put out linear power that should work just fine, as far as the lighting is concerned for the Dash 9. So that's those. Now, this here is a DC motor controller that I just got off Amazon a while back. I tend to use fixed voltage transformers, hobby type power supplies, rather, I guess I should say. And they just put out, a fixed 18 to 20 volts. And they can be a lot cheaper than buying a marketed transformer for trains. But this also puts out pulse width modulation. So I basically just want to kind of show you how each one of these works, and that at the end you can kind of conclude that it's not a manufacturer like specific kind of issue, and maybe you have a little bit better understanding of how this stuff works. So let's get going. We'll start off with the standard spectrum transformer here first, and we'll see how the Dash 9 reacts to that. Again, this is just putting out straight linear power, and we have this set to run in the forward direction. So if we come down to this end here and we start turning this on, we're going to see that our headlight and ditch lights should come on like they're supposed to. You might notice the motor's kind of growling a little bit. That really isn't, it's really not the Dash 9. This transformer is older, and I think the power it puts out isn't quite filtered like it should be. But at any rate, as the headlights, ditch lights are on there, if we come down here and we look at the other end, you'll notice that the rear headlights are off, like they should be. And of course, if we stop that, change the direction, we're going to get our rear headlights running. And we'll notice down at this end, everything's off like it should be. Everything's working like it's supposed to. No problems at all, right? Okay. So, next, let's take a look at the Aristo-Craft transformer that has the pulse width control, pulse width modulation. We're going to go ahead and turn this on the run in the forward direction. And, of course, we'll see that the headlights and ditch lights come on once we start going here. Okay, so there we are. Looks like it should, but if we come down here to the other end, you're going to notice that the rear headlight's on as well, which it shouldn't be. Now, I'm going to take and turn the throttle all the way to the max, and you'll see, like I was saying just recently, that once you get to the full voltage and that pulse width modulation smooths out, you'll see that light will go off. See? Went off like it's supposed to. But we come back down a little bit, and it comes back on. So, it's kind of a strange thing. But again, it's because of the power that this transformer is putting out. And we're going to see the same exact thing with both of these, I assure you. But we're going to hook them both up and show you so you can see. So let's move on to the older Crest made base station. So we got this set to run in the forward direction, and just like before, we'll take a look here, and we should see that the front headlights, ditch lights come on like they should. But as before with the Aristo transformer, we're going to see there's the rear headlight on. Of course, if we run that up to max, it's going to go off. And there it goes. So again, same thing. Let's take a look at the newer Precision RC produced base station that comes with sound. That you're not going to hear any sound because there's no speaker connected to this. This is just a heat sink, which you didn't see it on that one, but it has a heat sink as well to get the heat off of it. You'd have to hook up a separate speaker to the speaker connection down here if you want to hear that, but I figured I'd point that out before somebody says I didn't hear any sound. So we got it set to run in the forward direction, and we'll take a look up at the front. You'll see our headlights, ditch lights are coming on already, like we'd expect. And of course, there's that rear headlight on already. Running up to full voltage, it's going to go off. There you have it. No surprises there. You know, I know it's a real nail biter. You know, looking for the cliffhanger here. So we saw the same thing with the older Crest one, same thing with the Precision RC. We saw the same thing with the Aristo transformer. So far, the old Bachmann Spectrum that just puts out linear power works light fine. Which, if I didn't point it out before, when I'm using these, I'm actually just hooked up to the fixed DC voltage output of this transformer to supply the power to these. And we're going to do the same thing with this next item we're going to take a look at. And the reason why I want to show this is I know there's other people out there that do their own kind of DIY transformers for their large scale stuff. And they may have this or similar ones that you can buy on Amazon. And most of these you're going to find put out pulse width modulation. So let's switch over to this one, and we'll see the same exact thing, I'm sure. Again, it's just hooked up to the fixed DC output of the Bachmann transformer. So we got that set to run in the forward direction. And of course, right away, there's our headlight, ditch lights, and if you come down to the other end, big surprise, there's the rear headlight running. And of course, we bring that up to full voltage, and it should go off. And there it is. I know, big surprise, right? And actually, a nice feature of this is it actually has a voltage output on it, so that actually went off before it hit full voltage. And if we keep going, that's 16 volts. Let's back this off till it comes down and see what, or back it off till it comes back on and see what voltage we're at. And looks like about 13.5, 13.6 volts is where the pulse width modulation kind of starts getting a little bit spiky there, and it comes back on. So now, as I was hinting at earlier in the video, and I hadn't shown yet, slide this back out of the way a little bit, is there is something that can be done to fix this issue, and that would be this guy. Now, hence by the Crest part number on there, this is something that was made by Crest. There's a couple places that do make these. I'll drop a couple links in the description of the video. But all this is a very simple setup that will take the pulse width modulation, or pulse width control, since this is a Aristo-Craft thing, and the other end, it puts out straight, smooth, linear power. So with this hooked up between any of these, even this, if this is between them and our track, it's going to take the power coming out of these and filter it so it comes out nice and smooth. So let's hook this up and we'll take a look. All right, so just to recap, we've got fixed DC voltage coming out of the Bachmann transformer here. That's going to the input of this motor controller. And then the output of the motor controller, instead of going directly to the track, is actually going to the PWC input of this PWC to linear adapter board, PWC or PWM. Again, I know I keep saying it. It's the same thing. And then the output of this is going to the track, and that's basically taking that kind of like spiky wave pattern that we get from the pulse width modulation and smoothing it out. So we'll set this to go forward, and of course we're going to see headlights come on and ditch lights, and you will notice that they're a little kind of flickery at first, but there they are running. And if we come down here to the back, what do you think we're going to see? I'm going to say no rear headlight. How about that? So if we slow this down and stop it, and we change directions to run in reverse, there's our rear headlight. And we'll take a look up the front. And of course, no headlight or ditch lights, so just like it should be. So I'm not going unless we want to make this video longer than what it already is, I'm not going to take and hook this up in between this transformer and this base station and this base station. I have before, and it's going to do the same thing. It's going to fix the directional headlight issue. But if there's somebody that really wants to see a longer video of me hooking each one of these up, put something in the comments of the video, and sure, I'll go ahead and make it. But I think we've all had enough of listening to me talk about pulse width control, pulse width modulation, and linear power. So there you have it. All right. Well, I hope everybody found that informative. I probably didn't do the best of job explaining all that. If there's any questions or comments, just drop it in the comments of the video. I'll gladly respond. But I'm hoping, if anything, this helps people that may have recently got a Bachmann Dash 9 and they're noticing this issue with it, that it's okay, that there's not something damaged or wrong with your engine. There's just there's some issues with pulse width modulation, which, as I said, it's kind of plagued the large scale world for several years now. So thanks for watching the video, everybody.